May 11, 2019. Los Angeles was quiet that evening, the kind of quiet that feels almost sacred. Inside a private room, far away from cameras and flashing headlines, Peggy Lipton took her final breath surrounded only by the people who mattered most. To her, her daughters sat beside her. Her nieces stayed close. There were no reporters waiting outside, no Hollywood spectacle, no public farewell. After a 15-year battle with colon cancer, Peggy Lipton died at the age of 72. The world she had once been the face of a generation. She was the ash-blonde star of the Mod Squad, the Golden Globe-winning actress whose beauty and calm intelligence symbolized the spirit of late 1960s America. But the woman who died that night had spent most of her life trying to escape the spotlight. That made her famous. The strange truth about Peggy Lipton's story is that she was adored by millions while privately feeling terrified of attention. America saw confidence when it looked at her. Peggy herself felt fragile, anxious, and deeply uncomfortable in public life. The distance between those two realities shaped nearly every decision she made. Margaret Ann Lipton was born on August 30, 1946 in New York City and grew up in Lawrence, Long Island. Her father, Harold Lipton, was a Harvard-educated lawyer, while her mother, Rita Benson, came from an artistic, Jewish family with roots stretching through Ireland and Eastern Europe. Peggy grew up in a home that valued success and appearance, but from an early age she carried emotional wounds nobody around her fully understood. At 7 years old, she developed a severe stutter. It was so painful that she often avoided speaking altogether. She became consumed with fear over certain words and sounds, terrified people would grow impatient while waiting for her to finish a sentence. Years later, in her memoir Breathing Out, Peggy revealed something even more devastating. Around the same age her stutter began, she had been sexually abused by a relative. She never sensationalized the experience or used it for sympathy. Instead, she quietly connected it to the anxiety and fear that followed her throughout her life. That trauma shaped her deeply. It made her withdrawn, sensitive, and hyper-aware of rejection. Even as a child, Peggy learned how exhausting it was to hide pain behind a calm face. Yet by the time she was 15, her extraordinary beauty had already opened doors. She signed with the Eileen Ford modeling agency and transferred to the professional children's school in New York. Suddenly, she was stepping into the glamorous world of fashion and entertainment while privately battling depression and insecurity. During her late teenage years, she experimented with drugs, later admitting she used cocaine and peyote in attempts to silence the anxiety she could never fully escape. Hollywood would eventually reward her beauty, but it offered little protection from the emotional chaos already growing inside her. When her family moved to California, from the emotional California, Peggy signed with Universal Studios. It was the beginning of her transformation from Margaret Lipton into Peggy Lipton, television star. Then in 1968, everything changed overnight. ABC premiered a revolutionary drama called The Mod Squad. The show followed three troubled young undercover cops connected to the counterculture movement of the late 1960s. Peggy played Julie Barnes alongside Michael Cole and Clarence Williams III. The series became an instant sensation because it captured something America was struggling to understand: its own young generation. The country was divided by protests, war, race relations, and cultural upheaval. The Mod Squad brought those issues directly into living rooms across America. Peggy Lipton quickly became the breakout star. Her long, straight blonde hair, soft voice, serious expression, and effortless style turned her into a fashion icon almost immediately. Young women copied the way she dressed. Men fell in love with her. Television critics praised her natural presence. In 1971, she won the Golden Globe for Best Actress in a Television Drama and earned multiple Emmy nominations during the show's run. But behind the scenes, fame was crushing her. Peggy later admitted she hated celebrity culture. Attention frightened her, interviews exhausted her, crowds made her anxious. The same woman millions saw as cool and confident often hid inside her home, struggling with paranoia and insecurity. She still battled her stutter. On set, certain words remained difficult to pronounce, and one director reportedly humiliated her for asking to change lines she physically could not say. Her co-stars defended her fiercely and demanded an apology. Peggy never forgot their kindness. That contradiction became the defining theme of her life. She was one of the most recognizable women in America, Yet emotionally she still felt like the frightened little girl unable to say her own name. After the Mod Squad ended in 1973, Peggy tried to continue building her career. She released music, recorded songs that charted on Billboard, and explored other acting opportunities. But internally she felt exhausted by fame. Around that time, she met the man who would completely change the course of her life. Quincy Jones stopped by. The early 1970s, Quincy Jones was already one of the most respected figures in music history. He had worked with legends like Frank Sinatra, Miles Davis, and Ray Charles. Brilliant, ambitious, and charismatic, Quincy seemed like the opposite of Peggy's fragile uncertainty. They fell deeply in love and married in 1974. Their marriage immediately became controversial because it was interracial. America in the mid-1970s still carried enormous racial tension, and Peggy faced backlash from strangers, tabloids, and even members of her own family. Her mother struggled to accept the relationship. Peggy refused to apologize for her choice. She loved Quincy and believed in the life they were building together. Soon they welcomed 2 daughters, Kidada Jones and Rashida Jones. And then something surprising happened. Peggy Lipton disappeared, not because Hollywood rejected her, not because scandal destroyed her career. She stepped away voluntarily. Quincy reportedly wanted her focused on family life, and Peggy herself felt increasingly disconnected from the entertainment industry. For nearly 15 years, she retreated from acting almost entirely, while Quincy Jones built one of the greatest careers in music history, producing Michael Jackson's Off the Wall, Thriller, and Bad. Peggy stayed home raising their daughters. From the outside, it looked like a glamorous life. Inside, things were more complicated. Peggy later described the marriage as passionate but difficult. Quincy's career demanded enormous attention and constant movement. Peggy struggled with isolation and identity loss. She loved her daughters deeply, but years away from acting slowly eroded her confidence. The woman who had once dominated television no longer recognized herself professionally. Then came heartbreak. Inside heartbreak. In 1986, Peggy and Quincy separated. Their divorce became official in 1990. Though they remained close friends, the end of the marriage forced Peggy into a terrifying realization. She no longer knew how to exist independently. After 15 years away from Hollywood, she felt emotionally frozen. In her memoir, she admitted she became so insulated as a mother and wife that she no longer even knew how to pick up the phone and ask for work. Imagine that reality. A Golden Globe-winning actress too afraid to make a professional phone call. Meanwhile, her daughters were growing into remarkable women. Rashida Jones attended Harvard University before becoming one of Hollywood's most respected actresses and writers, starring in Parks and Recreation and films like The Social Network. Kidada Jones built a successful career in fashion and design. But Kidada's life would soon become tied to one of the most tragic stories in music history. In the early 1990s, Tupac Shakur publicly criticized Quincy Jones for having children with white women. Rashida Jones responded with a powerful open letter defending her father and challenging Tupac's views. Surprisingly, Tupac later apologized personally to the family. That apology eventually led to something unexpected. Romance between Tupac and Kidada Jones. Their relationship became intense very quickly. By 1996, they were living together and deeply in love. Then came September 7, 1996. Tupac traveled to Las Vegas for the Mike Tyson fight. Kidada reportedly had a terrible feeling about the trip. Hours later, Tupac was shot in a drive-by attack. Kidada rushed to the hospital where she stood beside him during his final days. She told him she loved him before he slipped into a coma. 6 days later, Tupac died at 25 years old. The tragedy devastated her. Peggy watched her daughter endure unimaginable grief while carrying her own emotional scars from childhood, fame, marriage, and depression. Yet somehow she kept moving forward. Then, against all expectations, Peggy Lipton found a second life in Hollywood. In 1990, director David Lynch cast her in the groundbreaking television series Twin Peaks. Peggy played Norma Jennings, the warm-hearted owner of the Double R Diner. The role fit her perfectly. Unlike Julie Barnes, Norma didn't require Peggy to project youthful coolness or celebrity glamour. She simply had to be human. Audiences loved her all over again. Peggy later admitted, Twin Peaks gave her more joy than any acting role she had ever played. It reminded her that she still mattered creatively. She slowly rebuilt her confidence and returned to television and stage work throughout the 1990s and early 2000s. Then in 2004, another devastating chapter began. Peggy was diagnosed with colon cancer. She was 57 years old. By then, she had developed a more peaceful relationship with herself through yoga, meditation, and spirituality.